What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to The Sports Scoop. We are very, very excited to be bringing you all our AFC and NFC championship predictions. We're finally here. Only 3 more games left of the 2022-2023 NFL season. Extremely excited, gentlemen. Obviously, Keaton McDermott, Charlie Nidell, Suraj Kadali in person. This is going to be a long one. We're going to be breaking down each game. In the NFC, we have the 49ers against the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the AFC, we have the repeat of last year in every way possible at Kansas City as Kansas City face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? It's championship weekend.
Feeling amazing on championship weekend. Could be feeling better because of, the unfortunate events of last weekend in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But, no need to dwell on that. We've got 4, outstanding teams, probably the top 4 teams in the NFL. I don't think we have any surprises in here.
Yeah, really.
I would say these are my top 4 teams in the NFL as of right now. So it's going to be really exciting. It's going to be a good week of football. It's going to be exciting. Suraj?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think these are the 4 best teams in the league, and I think we're going to be treated to some amazing football, and I can't wait to dive into it.
Let's get into it. As always, make sure you guys are following us on our social medias. Before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Draft content obviously comes out after we do our NFL season stuff, so make sure you guys are following us over there. And without further ado, let's get into it.
So, diving into the first one, like you said, we got the NFC Championship. We got the Philadelphia Eagles against the San Francisco 49ers at 3 o'clock. Philadelphia, 2.5-point favorites here. It is very, very even. So, firstly, we're going to talk about the offenses. So, I think with these teams, what I think is these teams are so stacked. They've got supporting casts for both quarterbacks are amazing. So, my question is, which quarterback do you think has the better supporting cast?
This is a tough one. I think this is actually a very tough one.
This one's easy enough for me. Brock Purdy.
You think so?
There's a better supporting cast
Easy enough.
in San Francisco than in Philadelphia. For me, I love A.J. Brown. I love Devonta Smith. I think both of them are, right now, probably top 10 receivers in the NFL. But Deebo Samuel, coming off of the injury, has 178 yards and a touchdown in 2 games, not to mention his 43 rushing yards. So he's up at around 230 yards and a touchdown across 2 games, coming off of an injury in the playoffs. That's pretty amazing to me. George Kittle also over 100 yards. Christian McCaffrey is up over 200 yards in the playoffs. So for me, this one, it's the Niners have a better supporting cast and offense to sit around Brock Purdy than the Eagles do for Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles is outstanding. Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. There are a bunch of names. Even Quez Watkins, shows up, makes plays. But for me, the San Francisco 49ers offense, other than quarterback, is better than the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is a tough one. I think, and people don't think about this often. I think when you look at supporting cast, I think it's actually very important to talk about defenses. And I know that doesn't make sense, but in terms of just which player has a better team to help them win. But I think this one for me, I would give it to. Yeah, I would probably give it to San Francisco, but I think that is in part to who Jalen Hurts is as a quarterback and who Brock Purdy is, because Brock Purdy is Brock Purdy is having the success he's having because of his supporting cast.
Yeah.
This is a system quarterback scheme. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo, look at Brock Purdy. They're not 2 fantastic top 10 quarterbacks, right? But they play fantastic and they make it this far because of the system around them. And I think Jalen Hurts again, but Jalen Hurts is another guy who a lot of people are like, with this guy, if you put in Gardner Minshew, they would be having the same success. There's obviously the haters on Jalen Hurts, so it's a close one for me. But I think Purdy for me. But I think receiver wise, I think you give it to Hurts. It's a tough one. These teams are very evenly matched, very, very evenly matched on both sides of the ball. But I would give the advantage just to Purdy because of how much more success it's. But I'm saying that I think it's Jalen Hurts support. It's a tough one.
This is
I'm lost for words.
Insanely tough. I would go Philly just because I think just every level, they're so stacked. I think, like you said, Charlie, 2 borderline top 10 receivers. Obviously, A.J. Brown is the Devontae Smith is borderline, I would say. You've got those running backs. Miles Sanders had a career year this year. You've got Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, who I guess just always shows up against the Giants every single time. And then you've got that offensive line, which I think Philadelphia arguably have the best offensive line in football. You've got guys like Mailata and Lane Johnson as the tackles, Sumalo and Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelsey. It is just
we saw the impact Lane Johnson had against the Giants this
not
weekend.
a single weak point to that offense. And that offensive line is the reason why I think Philly have a very, very slightly advantage over the San Francisco 49ers in terms of offensive weapons. And that is incredible when you consider the weapons that San Francisco have. They have obviously Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell. Both teams are stacked. They have a pretty good offensive line too. It's so close. I would barely take Philly's offense. I think Philadelphia, they've been able to kind of stay relatively healthy, and the whole year they've been I believe the second best offense scoring wise in the NFL, and I think that's because of Jalen Hurts. He's had a great year, but I think all of those weapons have really played a huge part.
Yeah, it's a close one though. I mean, when you talk about this matchup, excuse me, I was muted there. When you talk about this matchup, I think it's like really you look at both of these teams, AFC as well. We'll get into that, but I mean, you look at defensively and offensively these teams, and I really think the only difference is quarterback. But even then, both quarterbacks find success with these offenses. So I think in terms of supporting cast, it's razor thin margins. I think both of these quarterbacks have exactly what it takes.
No, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I think obviously everyone would take Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy, but he is probably the prototypical Shanahan quarterback. He distributes the ball well, has solid mobility, accurate. He has incredible poise for a rookie.
And it's no shade to Purdy.
Exactly.
Not all quarterbacks to go into the system and be successful. He's definitely
I think
done a
people
great job
use the system to say, oh yeah, well he's not a top half quarterback. And I agree. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but the fact that he stepped in as Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, and was able to even execute this offense, a very complex offense, is just really all the 49ers could have asked of him. And I don't think he's a great quarterback, and I don't even know if he should be the quarterback next year. We'll get into that later. But I think the fact that he's just doing what the Niners need him to do is so crucial for the Niners, and he's the reason why they're still in this, why they're in the NFC Championship and why they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I actually disagree. I think Brock Purdy is doing something special with this 49ers offense.
Oh, yeah.
I think that a lot of people are calling him a system quarterback and saying what he's
I don't even
doing,
think that's a bad thing necessarily.
It's not.
It's true though, but
it's true, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I would say
it's not necessarily a bad thing, and yes, he is definitely a system quarterback. I used the wrong word, but people are saying that he would only be able to do this in the San Francisco 49ers offense. That Kyle Shanahan has coddled him into this role, and that he didn't do that for Trey Lance and for Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think while obviously Brock Purdy's numbers are nothing extraordinary, he has not lost a game in this offense or in this team.
Yeah, that's the crazy stuff.
And Jimmy Garoppolo and Tray Lance both lost games. Trey Lance looked atrocious in this team.
I mean, to be fair, his only game was in a monsoon and it was without CMC. I think he still
really
deserves,
bad in this team. Regardless of the conditions, regardless of everything that happened, he did not play well for the Niners. Right. He did not. Jimmy Garoppolo, in fact, played really well with the San Francisco 49ers this year. I think he was 7-1 with the Niners this season, 6-1. But I think that what Brock Purdy is doing to be undefeated as Mr. Irrelevant, I don't care who his head coach is, I don't care who his supporting cast is. This is something that the fact that his first loss of his career could be in the NFC Championship game, or in the Super Bowl, or could be in his second season. It's not something that has ever happened before. Brock Purdy is working wonders with the San Francisco 49ers right now, and he's continuing to do that in the playoffs. He's impressing even more in the playoffs. 546 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions across the 2 games. I mean, what he's doing for the San Francisco team, people are starting to notice. First few weeks, it was, oh, wow, Brock Purdy's undefeated. And these last few weeks, it's, oh, he's actually playing really well. Yeah, he's making really good throws.
Exactly.
That Seattle play where he almost had that touchdown, Ayuk dropped it.
No, exactly.
That should have been a touchdown.
Brock Purdy's making outstanding plays with this Niners team, and people are overlooking it and saying it's because of the offensive playbook and because of the game plan and because of the coaching genius. No, I mean,
and it is, but I think, but obviously, 100%. When you're undefeated, the quarterback definitely plays a role.
Something right, and especially they're not just running the ball every game. They're giving him their trust. They're putting the ball in his hands. And they're
I think the whole difference now is, and especially with Brock Purdy, it's not like, oh yeah, Brock Purdy's that quarterback. Like it's like Brock Purdy's our quarterback, and I see him snapping the ball, I see him going out of the team, and it's like, I have full confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
He's not seen as a impediment to the Niners at this point.
Yeah,
Like he's
exactly.
seen as the guy who
He's their leader.
is their
Like, he's
most
their
successful.
quarterback.
Exactly.
He's seen as the guy who can go and lead them. So I think that in and of itself is extremely impressive. Even if he loses this game, his beginning of his career will be fantastic. And Serge, I think you saying that you might, I don't know. I don't know if you think he'll be the starter next year. I think it would be ridiculous for them not to start him.
I think there's
but
a lot
again,
of
maybe he has a horrible game in this championship game, and maybe it's a little bit of a question mark.
and
but I
while
think, it's definitely what he's done, and we've said it several times. What he's done is unprecedented in this league. To be able to step in and have the success you've had, he hasn't lost a game yet. That's incredible.
Unbelievable. And I think so. While we're on that topic, I think one of the more interesting things is that I think even though he's undefeated, I don't think he's faced a challenge like this. Going into a tough road environment in a playoff game against maybe the best defense he's going to face all year, because he's not facing his own defense. But do you think that he can handle a game of this magnitude, of this pressure in the playoffs, a tough road environment like Philly? Do you think he's up to the challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough one. I think every quarterback will struggle. I think we saw, and me and Charlie, obviously, as Giants fans, I think Daniel Jones was great this year, but he struggled a lot in Philadelphia. I think there will be a struggle, and again, not to be a Giants heavy, but I think you compare what Daniel Jones has to what Brock Purdy has, and Brock Purdy should have more success. It's a tough one. I think he will struggle. I think no one can say he won't. I don't think this will be a cakewalk for either teams.
Yeah.
And that's simply because Philadelphia defense is fantastic. They know how to pressure the quarterback. I think Brock Purdy's going to get pressured like he has not gotten pressured yet in the NFL. So I think that's what it's going to come down to, is how is he going to handle that pressure? How are they going to scheme receivers to get open? Philadelphia have the best defense in the league right now.
Niners.
Here's the thing. I think it's close.
San
But
Francisco
here's the
better.
thing. I think Philadelphia is the best secondary in the league. That's what I meant to say. I think Niners have a
that's
better
fair.
front seven. But I think
I don't know how you can say that. Philadelphia finished with 70 sacks this season, with 4 players with 10-plus sacks. We don't see that often. Hassan Reddick, Fletcher
fantastic.
Cox, Josh Sweat.
See, front four, I think.
It's kind of unprecedented what Philly's doing with their front seven right now. The amount of times they've sacked the quarterback this year, for me, I know the statistics might say otherwise. For me, the eye test, watching these teams play, Philadelphia's defense is absurd. Philadelphia and Dallas were the 2 teams that I think have the best defense, and then the Niners probably close third. And Brock Purdy was able to beat the Cowboys. Let's say that.
See, front. We're moving into one of the topics, defensive lines, which I think both are fantastic. But I think here's what I would say. I think front four, I think Philadelphia are slightly better there. But front seven, I think you got to go San Francisco, because Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair, that is easily the best linebacker tandem in the league. That's the reason why they've been such a good defense this year. And they've got, obviously, a pretty darn good front four, too. They got Nick Bosa, who's probably the defensive player of the year. You've got
Nick Bosa,
you've got Arik Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, who's really stepped up, and a few other guys like Charles Amanu, who I think.
His name is
Lenoir has been amazing.
Yeah, Lenoir in the secondary. But I think the Niners' combination of a great defensive line and the best linebacker tandem, I think they have a better front seven. But I think both these teams are elite defenses. But I think overall, as the whole season, I would say San Francisco.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we saw Hassan Reddick had 16 sacks this season,
he's been
which
great.
rivals Nick Bosa. Bosa had 18?
18 and a half.
18 and a half. And then we have Javon Hargrave and Brandon Graham, neither of whom I mentioned earlier, with 11 sacks each. Josh Sweat with 11 sacks. Fletcher Cox with 7 sacks. And then you look at also, I think, a very underrated stat, tackle for loss. All 4 of those guys finished with, it looks like 9+ tackles for loss this season. Plus here's a linebacker, TJ Edwards has played outstandingly well for Philadelphia this year. But I think the problem for San Francisco defensively is secondary. I agree with you, Kian. I think that the Eagles are unmatched in the secondary right now.
Yeah, unmatched.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson had 6 picks. James Bradbury's an all-pro with 3 picks. Darius Slay's a Pro Bowler with 3 picks. Reed Blankenship, Avonte Maddox. It's a very, very strong secondary.
Yeah.
Reed Blankenship been talking about the rookie from Middle Tennessee. Is that the wrong guy?
I believe that's him.
Is
Reed
that
Blankenship.
him? Wow,
Yeah.
that is him.
He has played outstandingly well this year.
Wow.
Yeah, he's had a good year.
I believe going into the season as their number 3 or 4 safety has made himself a starter.
Yeah, because Avonte has been out, I believe.
Because of
And C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, they play Gardner Johnson as a corner.
But now Marcus
No, I
Epps
think they
and
played-
Blankenship are their top safeties.
Yeah, because Maddox is injured, so they play C.J.
Gardner Johnson
in
is
the
playing
slot.
is playing in the slot.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think he's more useful.
He is more than capable of playing the slot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I think the Eagles secondary is just kind of unmatched by
Yeah.
the Niners.
Yeah,
the Niners have a
absolutely.
very good secondary.
But I think the Niners, generally, you look at even their Super Bowl run when they lost to the Chiefs. Like the secondary wasn't it was always the front seven. The Niners always used their front.
But
seven
I think this year this is the best secondary the Niners have ever had under like Kyle Shanahan. I know he's an offensive coach, but in that era where they've had good defenses, this secondary for the Niners is very good because Charvarius Ward, arguably a top 10 corner, he didn't have the greatest game against Seattle.
No,
got burned by DK, but he's had a very, very good year. And then you've got Lenoir, who had a huge pick. He's been solid as well, but those safeties as well.
I mean,
Talanoa Hufanga, first team All-Pro. I think
has been,
it's been
he's
an
literally
absolute
Colorado,
revelation.
and it's not just the hair. Like,
yeah, I mean,
Hufanga's
great player. He flies across the field, and sometimes that can hurt him at the same time. Maybe overcommits at times, but he has had an amazing year. And then you also got Tashawn Gibson, who is more of a veteran presence. I think over
Jimmy
30.
Ward as well.
Jimmy Ward.
He made a huge play.
Yeah, he's been like I think overall as a whole, the Niners secondary, obviously they don't get as much attention because they have that defensive line, that linebacker core, but they are among the top 5 as well in my opinion. So this is
very good.
2 elite defenses at every single level
and
of the field.
offenses that are high firing.
That's what I'm saying. These are the two
most
bet-
well-built teams
yeah,
in the NFL.
I think when you look at the NFC, it's just overall their teams are amazing, and then when you look at the AFC, it's obviously the quarterbacks and the skill positions also too.
I still think the quarterbacks in this one and this is actually really interesting.
The quarterbacks especially, and the quarterbacks aren't bad in this one either, especially Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have been seeing this on social media, but something that's really interesting. So Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts faced off when Jalen Hurts in his last year at Oklahoma. Iowa State, and they had an electrifying matchup. I think Brock Purdy threw for 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts threw for a ton. Oklahoma were the number 9 ranked. They ended up
Classic
winning
Big
the game.
12 game.
But that again, like these guys have had fireworks already.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be so. And again, I don't think that'll happen again.
Yeah, not
it's
against
so
these
interesting,
defenses.
but I think. But I don't. The Eagles' defense to me is just, and again, I think the Niners as well. It's just they're 2 defenses that I don't think get open very well, or get open very often. Excuse me. So I think it's not going to be like that, but it's definitely very, very interesting to see what these 2 quarterbacks have done against each other at the college level. When it's just because Brock Purdy wasn't like a guy who. Coming out of the draft, obviously, I don't think he was even on our top 100 players in our big board.
Not even close.
Yeah, not even close. So it's funny to see that in college he was so successful against a guy like Jalen Hurts. So it's going to be a wonderful matchup. But getting to the next one, we've already really talked about if we think Brock Purdy's the future, so I don't think we need to touch on that.
Yeah, I think.
But who do we think the non-X factor besides quarterback? So neither Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy, who's the X factor? Defensive, offensive side of the ball, we can go one player on each. Who do we think is going to be the X factor in this game besides the 2 quarterbacks?
I've been thinking about this. I'm gonna go Devontae Smith. He has had a great playoff. He has been in the playoffs. He's been great.
Yep.
All playoffs. AJ Brown, he's been good too. But I think AJ Brown really being that receiver one opens it up for Devontae Smith.
To be clear, the Eagles have only played 1 playoff game.
That is true.
In which Hurts only passed for
that
150
is true.
yards.
But I think down the stretch, in general, I feel like AJ Brown has really opened it up for Devontae Smith, and I think you're going to see Charvarius Ward often kind of traveling with AJ Brown, and I think that's going to leave the door open for Devontae Smith to have a massive, massive game. And I think Lenoir is a solid corner as well, but I think Devontae Smith, especially as a top 10 receiver, he's not going to have as much attention because obviously they have AJ Brown as well, and I think he's going to have a big game. I think over 100 yards.
Now, where I think you're wrong here is I think Charvarius Ward, I could be totally wrong here. I think Charvarius Ward will be one-on-one with Devonta Smith all game long.
Really?
I think Devonta Smith, as a wide receiver, this is not a knock against him, but where he hurts you is on the deep ball.
Recently.
Where Devonta Smith hurts
Recently,
you, where
but
Devonta
no,
Smith
but-
can seriously hurt you is the deep ball.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to be super, super wary about.
I think AJ Brown can too.
But AJ Brown, AJ Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles use as their check down receiver. They use as their solid
True, but I
receiver
think
who
also he
makes
provides a
more
lot of
catches.
threats on 9. So I think that's where Charvarius Ward will be.
But I think Charvarius Ward will be guarding Devonta Smith. Where Devonta Smith hurt the Giants was on a deep post. Devonta Smith loves the deep post. He runs it all the time.
That is true.
They try and get it to him probably, I'd say, twice a game. And those 2 plays, he will kill you. I think it's really, that's what they're going to have to be wary of. And they're going to have Talanoa Hufanga over the top. They'll have Tashawn Gibson. but it's going to be hard to guard him if they don't have a top corner shading him. And I think that they will use Charvarius Ward in that role
You think it's
because
Charvarius Ward against Devontae Smith?
I do, because I think that if A.J. Brown's going to be running a lot of underneath, a lot of over-the-middle routes, which they like to use him for, that's where Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw step in. And that's where they use
Gibson there too.
Yeah, and I think
exactly.
I mean,
I think it's going to be impossible to throw over the middle against this Niners team if they're dropping Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw into coverage. It's so hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers are going to scheme this game defensively, obviously, I would assume, very well. We know D'Amico Ryan will be, I will assume, a head coach next season. The Niners just have this trait of being able to breathe. He's been phenomenal for the 49ers. So, I mean, to me, I think the X factor, I like the Devontae Smith one. I think I'll go on the defensive side. I'll let Charlie kind of you give what you think. I think defensively, it's a tough one, but I think it'll be the edge rushers. I think it'll be Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. And that I think, and similarly on the other side, Nick Bosa and who's their other? It's not Tariq Armstead. Who's their on the other side? It's
Wait, what are you talking about?
Chris
for the
Omenihu?
Niners.
I think Chris
Chris
Omenihu is playing
Omenihu,
the
but I
other
know
side.
he's generally a 3-4.
No, he's
Not
fourth. He's
Omenihu.
fourth.
No, I know, but I'm saying.
I think Arik Armstead plays the middle more.
Yeah,
so
so
I think it's
I think
Omenihu
Nick
on the
Bosa, but
outside.
that being said, I think
Ebukam.
Ebukam. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Ebukam was amazing.
Yes.
Who had a fantastic game. Excuse me. And that only because so I think you look at the Niners game in the divisional round. Nick Bosa, I don't think got as much pressure as he would have liked.
Yeah, he wasn't.
I think again, obviously they're
factor
gonna,
in this game.
Again, he's going up against a very good Eagles offensive line. He's going to be double teamed.
He's going to be against one of the best tackles in the league, whatever side he plays.
Exactly. So I think on one side you're going against Mailata, who is a wall of a man,
absolute monster, 6'7", 6'8", something like that. He's huge.
So it's a tough one for me, but I think edge rush in this game is going to be very important because I think these are two quarterbacks who are used to being able to sit in the pocket, have time, throw your check down, go through your progressions. And I think that you're going to need to disrupt that. Obviously, that's to any game, but I think to me the edge rushers specifically are very important because you're going up against good tackles on each side of the ball. Each side, Eagles. Again, the more we talk about it, the more similarities I see between these two teams. It's very, very
exactly, just so well built.
Built. So yeah, that's kind of where it is for me. But I think for me, the edge rushers, especially Nick Bosa to me, because I think he would have been a little upset with himself with how he played in the division round. Not, again, he got that, I believe he got a half sack, the one with Ebukam, but Ebukam was fantastic. That strip sack he got was crucial. So I'm going to go for the edge rushers. And I agree on the offensive side of the ball. I think Devontae Smith, he obviously had that huge catch against the Giants to start off the game. I think he's going to be really important. But that's where I'm going to go with on the offensive side of the ball. I think McCaffrey's obviously incredibly important. It's tough to narrow this one down to one or two players with Charlie.
We have a bunch of outstanding players on the field. I guess I'll highlight, a matchup that I'm really looking forward to see is Hassan Reddick and Mike McGlinchey.
Oh, yeah.
Mike McGlinchey is a good tackle, but I think he's a very inconsistent tackle.
You saw that one frame where he was literally sideways, parallel to the ground against Micah Parsons.
He looks like he's a top 10 tackle.
Yeah.
He has games where he looks like he's a top 10 tackle, but then he plays against Micah Parsons and gets exposed.
I mean, not really. Micah Parsons didn't have a sack, but he did have 7 pressures. He had a solid game.
But he has times when he looks very good. He has times when he looks very bad. And I think Hassan Reddick right now is playing so unbelievably well that it's going to be really hard for Mike McGlinchey to stop, and that's going to be a key for him. Because the key to stopping the Eagles' pressure, obviously they had 4 guys with 10-plus sacks, but the main guy for them is Hassan Reddick. He was the one who terrorized the Giants while Evan Neal played like garbage. Yeah. And I think Mike McGlinchey's going to need to play a whole lot better than Evan Neal did if they want to stop this Eagles pass rush. Now, moving to the second player I'm going to highlight, that's Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think he's such an impactful player. Every time you go into a game looking at what you're going to do, the first thing you got to look at, now this is a team with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle on it, and the first player you're looking at is Deebo Samuel all the time because Deebo Samuel can get the ball out of so many different positions on the field. Deebo Samuel can get the ball out of the backfield on either side. He can get the ball in the slot. He can get the ball on the outside. And any way he gets it, he will hurt you if you don't make a tackle immediately. The key for them is going to be those linebackers and being able to tackle him the second he gets the ball. Will TJ Edwards be able to do it? Will Darius Slay, will James Bradbury be able to do it? And I think they're going to be sending I think the Eagles are going to have to game plan for that. I think they're going to have to send a lot of pressure on every single play because they don't want to let Brock Purdy have time, because Deebo Samuel will get open, George Kittle will get open, Christian McCaffrey will get open, so will Brandon Ayuk. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be that guy. They're going to be looking to get him the ball in any way possible and try and expose the tackling of the Eagles, which is it's going to be hard to do. The Eagles have one of the best defenses in the league, but I think if there's one spot you can exploit them, it's their linebackers and their tackling, and I think Deebo Samuel is the perfect guy to exploit that.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Debo could also be a huge factor for the defensive side of the ball. I agree with you. I think it's gonna be Hassan Reddick, and I think, like you said, coming off that Giants game, he's gonna have a lot of momentum. 2 sacks, I believe.
1.5.
1.5. But he was all over the place. Had 16.5 sacks. I think
16 this season.
16. Yeah. He has had an absolutely amazing season. And I think that will continue against San Francisco. Even though, like you said, San Francisco also have 2 very good tackles, Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, who's on and off, but I still think he's a good tackle. But I think Hassan Reddick will make a few big plays and finally put Brock Purdy under some pressure. And I think that is going to kind of, especially in a road environment, like I said, I think that could really finally make the rookie quarterback flinch. I think Hassan Reddick is going to be a huge part of this game. Josh Sweat too, Brandon Graham too, I think. But I think Hassan Reddick's going to be the main guy there, and I think he's going to make.
They're going to keep him on McGlinchey's side. I think they kept him on Evan Neal's side. They didn't even want to try him against Andrew Thomas last week, and I don't blame them. It worked perfectly. So I think they will not be trying him against Trent Williams because he will get shut down.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think
everyone.
I think it's actually an interesting one for me. Because I think Hassan Reddick, and you look at obviously how Mike McGlinchey, we saw Micah Parsons throw Mike McGlinchey, who's a 300-pound man, onto the floor. But what's really interesting for me is I think you look at Hassan Reddick and Micah Parsons, who I think are similar in terms of size, finesse rushers, speed rushers. Hassan Reddick's not going to be a guy who's power rushing or bull rushing into Mike McGlinchey, which I think, I think Micah Parsons kind of can do that a little bit more. Obviously, I would take Micah Parsons over Hassan Reddick, but I think you look at stature of these two guys, like they're not robust, big edge rushers. Like these aren't guys who you're putting in 3-4 systems as the edge there. But it's definitely an interesting one for me. I think Hassan Reddick is going to play a massive part in this, and I think obviously we're highlighting Hassan Reddick, Nick Bosa, but all the edge rushers, the different packages they run, just getting to the quarterback is going to be such a big part of this game because, and I'll re-emphasize my point, how much time these guys, I would say these guys generally have more time than the average quarterback in the NFL, and I think these guys I think you want to make the quarterbacks uncomfortable. That's how you're going to win this game. So I think both defensive coordinators are going to be working very hard to make that happen, and each team has the personnel to do it, so it's just kind of going to be who wants it more. So I'm very excited to see that. But we'll move on now to the interesting part. Before we move on to the AFC, what is your prediction for the game? Who do you think is going to win?
Should we go specific scores?
First.
All right.
Let's go team.
All right. I've got Philadelphia, and it's going to be a really close game. And it feels, like I said, not confident, because how can you be confident betting against a quarterback that's literally been undefeated in his career? But I think Philadelphia win, because I think the quarterback is a difference. I think the quarterback is a difference. Jalen Hurts is probably second in MVP voting after Patrick Mahomes. I think so. I'm pretty sure he will be. And I think his ability to run the ball and kind of take the top off of defense throwing the ball downfield, obviously he throws an absolutely wonderful deep ball, and I think he's going to hit that a few times, like I said, to Devontae Smith, maybe even to A.J. Brown once or twice. And I think that is going to be the difference. I think they're going to make a few more splash plays than San Francisco. And like I said, being on the road in Philly, that's a really tough environment. A team that's been the best team in the NFL this year, record-wise, and I think personally they are just the best team in the league. And I think San Francisco is a close second. But it is such narrow margins between these two teams. But I think Philadelphia are going to be able to kind of do more against this Niners defense, number one defense in the league, than any other team in the playoffs has done. They're gonna I don't think they're gonna put up 30, but I think they'll put up in the 20s, and I think they'll be just enough to beat Philadelphia, but it'll be close. But give me the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm gonna go San Francisco. I think this is a really tough one to me. I think it's gonna, and obviously we've touched on it so much. It's like, all the factors that go into it, who's getting pressure more, who's doing this. I think it's gonna come down to, I think this game will be very close. I think this game will be a nail biter. I think this game is going to come down to a field goal or a game-winning touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised if this game went into overtime. But I think it's going to come down to the exchange of scoring, right? I think and this is going to sound obviously like make sense, but when Philadelphia scores, are San Francisco at least getting 3? Or if say Philly scores a touchdown, I think it's going to be that close.
I think
is this going to be a shot for shot game? I think that's what it's going to come down to, and I think both quarterbacks can do that. And I just think this Niners defense to me, I think is going to rattle Jalen Hurts a little bit more, and I think the Niners have the ability to spread the ball just a tiny bit more than Philadelphia does, just a tiny bit more, and I think having that Christian McCaffrey backfield, having that ability, I just think the Niners might scheme this game a little bit better. They've been here before and more recently, and so I'm going to go for this one. This is a very close one. I'm not confident at all, but I think the Niners will edge this one out. And I think this is definitely going against the grain. I would assume there'll be more Eagles picks. Especially
I think it's pretty even.
I think it's probably even, but I think it's probably a little bit more towards Philadelphia. I don't think this is in any way. I'm not confident about this pick. It's a very, very close one for me. But I think, and again, I feel like games that are this close, it kind of goes down to like as much as we're analysts, it goes down to
exactly.
gut feeling. So I think for me, it's going to come down to. I think just the Niners are going to edge this one out. I have that feeling, and I guess we'll see. But Charlie.
Yeah,
what do you think?
You talk about the gut feeling. It's totally a part of how we pick these. So I'm going to say something, and it's going to completely contradict the point that I'm going to make right afterwards.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, I think the entirety of the 49ers offense, not the entirety, but a lot of the 49ers offense, their game plan is wearing down defenses. And they've got great players for that with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. They do a great job wearing down defensive lines, front sevens. They do a really good job of that. But we forget how deep the Eagles' front seven is. We forget exactly how deep they are. They have 3 stellar D tackles with Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis.
And don't forget Ndamukong Suh also. They brought him as well.
They've got Hassan Reddick, TJ Edwards, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, 3 edge rushers.
Well, TJ Edwards, he's more of a linebacker. What do you say?
Oh, did I mention TJ Edwards? Yeah. Then they've also got Linval Joseph, another D tackle.
Yep.
They've got Nakobe Dean and Kazir White at linebacker.
Kazir White's been very good.
And then they've got their safeties. They've got Marcus Epps, Reed Blankenship, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Kavon Wallace, who's been good. This is a really, really deep Eagles defense.
Right.
And I think that's going to be something that the Niners really struggle with. So here comes the massive contradiction. I'm going to pick the 49ers. Despite just saying that, all aboard the Brock Purdy train. I think there's something to be said for just winning games. Like, I don't really care how he does it. It doesn't really matter how he does it. He's undefeated as a quarterback in the National Football League, which is something that, nobody else does. And I would love to see that streak continue. I think it would be great. I am also an Eagles hater. But, Philadelphia is one of the hardest places to go into and win. The Eagles fans are very rowdy. We know what Eagles fans are like. Philadelphia fans in general. But I think Brock Purdy can do it. He went into Seattle midseason and beat Seattle. I think this will be a really great game to watch, an entertaining one. So I will take the 49ers. But, as you guys said, it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a very good one to watch.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And now should we go on to the AFC
Championship as we have the Kansas rematch, obviously, of last year, same location. As the Kansas City Chiefs face off against the Cincinnati Bengals. That being said, I love the Bengals' response to winning the game. You've just seen all the tweets, obviously not Eli Apple's tweet, but just the tweets about, the NFL did all those rule changes, assuming the Bills made it to the AFC Championship, and then the Bengals come along and just ruin that. So I think this game's going to be fantastic. And to me, the storyline is and again, I don't want to give away my prediction right away. A lot of these I come into when we have a conversation and then I make the pick.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not saying I'm going to pick the Bengals, but we go the situation we have with both teams, both situations. No Tyreek Hill on Kansas City. It reminds me very much of last year. I think the circumstances are very, very similar. If anything, they're more in Cincinnati's favor. Again, I'm not saying I'm picking Cincinnati, but it's a tough one. But Surge, what is our first?
Yeah, so Cincinnati, before we get into that, just recapping that Buffalo game, Cincinnati proved that. I think a lot of people picked Buffalo, but Cincinnati proved they were clearly the better team. On both sides of the ball, they dominated in the trenches, which was really interesting considering they had 3 backup offensive linemen there. They were able to throw the ball at will, run the ball at will. Defensively, they did a good job containing Josh Allen. But now going against Kansas City, the number 1 scoring offense in the league, it's a different challenge. But what will make it a less of a challenge is that Patrick Mahomes is going into this game hobbled on a bad ankle, a high ankle sprain. He will play. I think
When is he not injured for one of these? I
feel like every few divisional rounds, he always picks up some
some injury.
Weird
high ankle sprains. That sidelines you for like a.
That's what. But what they did, what Reed said, Andy Reid, he said that it was not as bad as the one he suffered a few years ago, and it was coincidentally also against Jacksonville the very next week where he played on that one that Reed said was worse than this ankle sprain. He threw for 443 yards.
Yeah,
so that is what kind of makes you think maybe he'll be just fine. But nonetheless, it's a high ankle sprain. He's obviously not going to be 100%. So how much do you think this impacts this game?
I think you kind of just said it.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It does. You don't think it does?
I mean, you kind of really. I think the Bengals defense. I don't think there's a massive margin between, and this is gonna. I guess obviously rushing and being able to be more elusive, but I don't see like a ginormous impact. The thing is though, I think the chances of it getting re-injured or hurt during the game are extremely high.
That's definitely. And I
think he's gonna have to.
They got to keep him clean. I think that's one of the most important things.
So actually, now you think about it, I think it is definitely a factor because
you're assuming the way he plays.
Yeah, the releases are going to be faster. He's going to be looking to throw the ball quicker.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be as elusive, being able to get out of the pocket. So I think it's going to be. Drugging him up legally.
Don't worry.
And making him feel as best as he can.
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is, which leg he throws jump passes off of. No, but I mean,
he literally did.
He did
on
he
one
threw
ankle,
off his right in the first half, and then one off his left for a touchdown in the second half. But on a serious level, Patrick Mahomes is, he's outstanding. We know that. Yeah. But here, the biggest problem for me with an ankle injury is that when it gets to clutch time, Patrick Mahomes uses his legs a lot. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes all season long is not a quarterback. He's not at all nice. He's not at all a rushing quarterback. He's just not. He's fast, but he does not like to scramble. It's not his thing. Scrambling is not Mahomes' thing. But when we get to playoffs time, we see Mahomes make really, really clutch plays with his legs. He makes them with his arm, but he also does it oftentimes with his legs when receivers don't get open. And I think without Tyreek Hill this year, receivers are going to struggle even more getting open. But I think it's going to hinder him, quite seriously. It's really, really tough to play on a high ankle sprain, no matter what position and what player you are. Mm-hmm. So a high ankle sprain on your quarterback it's not good, especially one who loves to run when it gets down to the fourth quarter. I think
even
play.
In the regular season, he is he's not like a scrambling quarterback in the sense that he actually runs, but he is a scrambling quarterback in the sense that every play he's outside the pocket, every few plays he's
Mahomes makes his plays outside.
That's what Mahomes is known for.
Yes.
But I think also what isn't being talked about is that Mahomes is also literally the best pocket passer in the league. In the pocket, he is first ranked in QBR passer rating. He is not going to be all of a sudden a bad quarterback just because he can't scramble as much. I think he'll still be able to scramble, but obviously not nearly to the same extent that he can. But I think in the pocket he's still going to be he's going to be a lot more like Alex Smith in the old Chiefs era, where it's going to be a lot more quick passes, a lot more kind of trying to not make him do as much, so he can still play fine. But I think overall he's going to be a different quarterback, but he's still going to be an elite quarterback. That's my thought. And I think even on one leg, me and Charlie were talking about it, he's still arguably the best quarterback in the league, which is just he's still Patrick Mahomes.
That's how clear he is. But I think they have the answer. How do you beat the second best quarterback in the NFL? By using the best quarterback in the NFL. It's just, I've said it since day one, and I think we can transition into this quarterback matchup. Mm. I've said it since day one. Joe Burrow's my number 2 quarterback in the NFL. And I'm
starting to get closer to you on that take.
It's not completely close. I've got Patrick Mahomes is my number 1 quarterback in the NFL. And that's clear. Mm-hmm. It's obvious. Joe Burrow's my number 2 quarterback in the NFL. And for me, that one's also clear and obvious.
I think now.
Especially after last week. I've had Burrow as my number 2 for weeks. Serge can verify.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know some Bills fans. They were really mad at me for it. And then it was just Monday when, a Bills friend of mine, he's a fan, came up to me and goes, yeah, you were right. Burrow's better than Allen. That's a Bills fan who
Yeah, that's
admits that.
crazy. Who? Mikey?
Yeah, Mikey.
Yeah,
wow.
He's been on the channel.
Yeah,
he's been
Mikey's
here.
been here,
He's
yeah.
an avid Josh Allen lover.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves Josh Allen with all his heart, as all Bills fans do.
That's crazy.
And he admitted
that.
to me that Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Josh Allen.
Podcast he was on, he wore Josh Allen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
You were on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow for
like
me
this
is the
time last
clear
year.
and obvious number 2 quarterback in the NFL. I think he is a much more consistent passer than Josh Allen. He's a much more mistake-free quarterback than Josh Allen. And while he doesn't necessarily bring the running element, Joe Burrow, he's just a much better passer than Josh Allen.
Much better. Josh Allen, I think, Josh Allen is just as good of a passer as any quarterback in the league. He's right there with Mahomes. I think there's very.
I
think
think
the
accuracy-wise, I think it's different.
Yeah, I would agree,
I think Joe
accuracy.
Burrow is one of those.
Yeah,
there are very few of them. I said it on a video a couple weeks ago. There are very few passers in the NFL that can throw to every single spot on the field. You put him on the 1-yard line, he will hit.
I think
Any
Allen can.
cone that you put down. I think Joe Burrow is one of those quarterbacks. I don't think Josh Allen is. I think Josh Allen's very, very close.
Seriously?
That's why he's the number 3 quarterback in the NFL, ahead of guys like Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, who can make those throws.
Jalen Hurts.
But I think Josh Allen is just one tiny step behind when you look at quarterback accuracy and presence as a pocket passer. Joe Burrow has, as a pocket passer, he is the number 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
He's
He's the
behind
number 2
Mahomes
quarterback, right?
just slightly in every single stat.
Yeah.
And I think Josh Allen's just one tiny little step down. That being said, I wouldn't say it's a step. It's number 2 and it's number 3. It's clear and obvious that they are the top 3. But I think, when you've got the top 2 quarterbacks going at it in this game, is this going to be a match where we're just looking at the quarterbacks?
Yeah.
I think you're going to be looking at the.
All right, sorry for that. It is snowy outside. We thought we would have a cool backdrop. Excuse me for the break, but yeah, it's snowing. It doesn't snow very often recently. But back to it, Chiefs. What were we talking about?
We were talking about Burrow and Mahomes, how they're the top 2
Mahomes, top 2
quarterbacks. And we're talking about is the quarterback all you look at. But I think there's one thing that the Chiefs absolutely have to look at, and that is Jamar Chase. Because he has absolutely torched them. If he's not there, it's going to be, but they've got Trent McDuffie, who's been astounding as a rookie.
Wow, really has it?
No, yes, he's been very good.
L'Jarius Sneed as well.
L'Jarius Sneed, but he's more of a slot. So he'll be on Tyler Boyd.
McDuffie, who we loved coming out of the draft.
Oh, yeah.
He's had an outstanding rookie year. And I think, but he's going against Jamar Chase, who has had, in his 3 games against the Chiefs, 24 receptions, 417 yards in just 3 games. So that's at an average of 8 receptions for 139 yards per game. So they have to focus on stopping him. And that is obviously tough when you also have guys like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, but you know who else has been really great? I mean, Jalen Watson on the other side of it.
That is true.
Jalen Watson has also been very good.
7th round pick.
7th round pick.
Something about the Chiefs in the 7th round picks because they got him and Isaiah Pacheco.
It's very weird. I mean, with corners of McDuffie, Watson, and Sneed, I'm not exactly worried.
I would be.
I'm always
when you're going
worried
against
of
Jamar Chase.
But that's no matter who my corners are. I'm not extra worried because of my corners. I'm not worried that my corners are going to be a liability.
Yeah.
So,
I think they haven't been a liability this year, especially for rookies. They've been fantastic. But I think
the Chiefs get,
And then with Justin Reed and Juan Thornhill up top as well.
they've got it. They're gonna.
I've
got to.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I know.
They've got to. I think they've got to bracket Chase, but they did that kind of in the AFC Championship and kind of limited him 6 receptions for.
It is snowing very hard
is
right
really
now.
snowing.
I know you guys can
It's
see
like
it.
our first snow.
Yeah.
First, real snow. But back to the point. But I think they kind of limited him in the AFC Championship, 6 receptions, 54 yards. But then T. Higgins went off for 103 yards. So I think 103 yards, something like that. So I think overall you got to focus on stopping Chase, but you also got to focus on stopping T. Higgins. And I think that's going to be a real conundrum for the Chiefs, no matter who you have in the secondary.
Yeah, Jamar Chase to me, yeah. And again, a guy who this season, second year, hasn't been as prolific.
He has. What we were expecting.
Yeah, I think he
thought
has.
this year
I think
would
he
have been
has.
somehow
He
better
had.
than last,
I think
which
no.
I don't
I
think
see some people are putting him in the receiver 1 conversation. I legitimately.
It's so
See,
bad.
Because here's someone he's
Justin Jefferson is our far and away wide receiver
and here's
one.
the thing. Last year,
and also remember this year, if you're gonna say he did like slow down, I don't think so because he was also out for like 4.
He was injured.
But this year last year, excuse me, I was adamant. I was like, I'm taking Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson for the future. I'm taking.
Yeah.
Now it's Jefferson, not close.
But here's the thing. I think obviously Jefferson has been better in the this season, but I think in the playoffs, out of all the elite receivers in the NFL, I think Jamar Chase has been one of the only ones who's actually shown up in the playoffs. Like Jefferson, he was limited. Tyreek Hill, he was limited.
Let's attribute that to the Giants' amazing secondary.
I mean, Adoree Jackson actually played pretty well, but
he did bracket.
But Jamar Chase, in every playoff game he's played, he has been cold. Every game.
Yeah.
But
and I think that obviously clutchness is kind of like a very vague term. Obviously, it's not like concrete at all, but you can see that Jamar Chase in the biggest games he shows up, and I think that has to count for something.
But look at the other side of the ball. Travis Kelce was targeted 17 times last week and ended with 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase is great, but Travis Kelce's different. Travis Kelce is
I think Jamar Chase over Travis Kelce, but and that's no slight to Travis Kelce, who's obviously one of the best receivers in the league.
He's broke the record for most.
Travis Kelce had the most receptions in any playoff game by any player.
By a tight end.
I think he tied for the most by any player.
No, I think Jerry Rice had
just
like 15. Yeah.
But either way, he broke for tight end at least. And I think the difference is that Travis Kelce's a tight end who they can throw to no matter who their quarterback in the game is. If it's Mahomes, if it happens to be Chad Henne for times, Travis Kelce will still be that reliable target. But I think, we did this for the Bengals or for the NFC, and I'm interested to see what you guys think for the AFC, for the key player for each team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I know who my key player for the Kansas City Chiefs is.
Go ahead.
And this is going to surprise a lot of people when I say it.
I know who you're going to say. Can I guess?
You can say
Isaiah Pacheco.
I was gonna say
I'm going Isaiah Pacheco. He took mine.
My key player is going to be Jerick McKinnon.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that.
I love Isaiah Pacheco is one of my favorite rookies in the NFL. He's one of my favorite players to use in Madden. He's really good in Madden.
Yeah.
He looks so sick wearing number 10 as well. Like it's just great.
Kind of looks like Tyreek Hill.
He does.
I think he's a great player, but for me it's Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon solved my fantasy woes at running back for the last few weeks of the season. And Jerick McKinnon is going to be a huge player in an offense that's very limited this weekend because of Patrick Mahomes' injury. Obviously, they're not going to come in with a game plan of only check it down. Patrick Mahomes is hurt. We can't do much with him. But Jerick McKinnon is always a force in the passing game, always a guy they can look to. He was their number 1 receiver over the last few weeks of the season. And as their number 2 running back, or as they're going into the season, their number 3 running back behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has gone completely quiet because he's not very good. I think Jerick McKinnon is going to be a massive X factor in this game because the Bengals are going to struggle to keep up with him out of the backfield, and the linebackers are going to be very focused on Travis Kelce. And when your linebackers are very focused on Travis Kelce, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, it's going to leave a lot of space for McKinnon and Pacheco out of the backfield. But I think this could be a game where McKinnon has 10 catches. I honestly think it could happen.
I think it's gonna be a check down game.
He might only have 2 rushes all game for like 3 yards, but I think this is a game where Jerick McKinnon, he only has 11 attempts. He had 11 attempts last game, but only for 25 yards. It's a horrible, horrible average. But I think in the passing game, he's going to be a big player. He didn't catch the ball once last weekend, and they're going to look to change that. Jerick McKinnon is a force in the passing game. I think it's going to be about Kelce and McKinnon. I think they could each end this game with 10-plus receptions and 100-plus yards each. But I think McKinnon could easily have 3 receiving touchdowns in this coming game. I think McKinnon's going to be that guy they look to in the red zone a lot. And I think he could easily have 100 yards and 3 touchdowns all in the receiving game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a tough. I think that's a key point is the check down game for Patrick Mahomes. Again, like we talked about, getting the ball out quickly is going to be something that Andrew's going to emphasize because of obviously that injury. But I think, again, I think it's going to be run heavy. And, this is all speculation. I think the Chiefs' game plan is run heavy, get the ball to Kelce quickly, get the ball to Pacheco running, and then obviously get it to McKinnon. And we know how lethal, those, not scat backs, but those, I guess kind of scat backs for the Chiefs have been over the years.
Mahomes targeted them a lot.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be extremely important. And again, I think I'm very excited. Maybe Mahomes goes out there and it's the same Mahomes. They're just going to be like, look, we know you're injured. He's going to give them every time the thumbs up. Sorry if I keep changing to the wrong thing. But that's what I think it's going to be, in my opinion.
I think Keegan kind of alluded to it earlier. Mine is Isaiah Pacheco. He has been absolutely phenomenal. One of the best value picks in the entire draft. And I think he's going to have a huge game. Not a huge game, but he's going to have a pretty good game for Kansas City to win this game. And I think he will, because he is he's been one of the best rookie running backs in the entire class. He is just, when he is running downhill, he's like the guy, like, Angry runs that segment.
Exactly.
And he runs like he's trying to win that every single week.
yeah.
He is just impossible to tackle. Good speed, good in open space.
And of course, the Chiefs get him in like the fourth round.
Seventh round. Literally the seventh round, the last round.
Yeah.
And he also takes advantage of the fact that Kansas City have one of the best interior lines. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Joe Tooney.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been an absolute revelation for them, because he is, like I said, impossible to tackle, really hard to bring down, because he also has decent speed. And I think he's going to be a huge X factor in this game. And they're going to try and run the ball with him, probably, in my opinion, at least 10 times. And he's going to play a role. And I agree with you that McKinnon's going to play a role, just to kind of, make the Bengals defense respect the run game, which they really weren't expected to as much in their last meeting. And one thing where I think Kansas City have a huge advantage, they didn't have a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. I don't even think they really had a guy like Jared McKinnon. Maybe they literally had him, but he wasn't the same player, in my opinion. And I think the fact that they're going to have to respect the run game is going to be a huge advantage, even if Patrick Mahomes is more limited than he usually is.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to me, what's very important, exactly what we said. I think it's very important because, again, we won't see this, but what I think we can speculate on what the game plan will be, and speculate Patrick Mahomes is injured. It's going to be more run heavy, which I think it will be. Mm-hmm. But again, it's how much. Are they? I would think maybe they give Patrick Mahomes the ball. They're like, yo, look, let it fly. We're gonna trust you, and and we'll see what happens. But the real question for me is, I mean, he's gonna get hit at some point. So it's how's that ankle gonna hold up? I would assume he'd be wearing some kind of brace, obviously. So
taped up
like obsessively. So I think
be able to notice it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's gonna be. I just think there's gonna be that. There's the Chiefs need to plan for a point in the game where Mahomes has to stand out for a little bit. Yeah. If that starts to flare up, so that's what I think they have to plan for. But the Chiefs have faced a lot of adversity in the past, and I think it doesn't change the game that much for me. Like, it's not the injury. I'm taking the Bengals. I think if Mahomes is even healthy like he was last year in the AFC Championship, it's very close. But do you want to get into who we have winning the games?
Well, let's get into
the Bengals key player.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right.
We'll
Sorry, excuse me. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Charlie,
what if I got really, really weird with this one?
Yeah.
Like Jerick McKinnon was a weird one.
Can I tell you who you're gonna say? Can I predict it?
I mean, go for it.
Is it gonna be Cameron Taylor-Britt?
It's not gonna be Cameron Taylor-Britt. It's going to be a different member of the Bengals secondary, and one that you would not expect me to pick. Like, it's going to be a weird one. I'm going to go with Von Bell.
Okay.
As my key player, because I think, and now it's not because of anything that Von Bell will directly do, but because I think my key players are going to be Von Bell and Dax Hill.
Right, so because
they're going to be
that
tasked
safety
with
tandem, because the two of them are going to be playing up high, because Jesse Bates will be likely manned up with Travis Kelce.
Or maybe they'll be both trying to bracket Travis Kelce.
Which I really like that matchup between Bates.
I think I was originally going to pick Jesse Bates and Logan Wilson, because I think they will be tasked with Travis Kelce for most of the game.
Which is a very good duo.
It's a great duo.
And I think it's a massive reason why they won it last year.
But I think because of that, I'm more worried about the Chiefs hitting him over the top.
Yeah.
And I'm more worried about Von Bell and Dax Hill's responsibility as the up high, over the top safeties. I think they're going to have to be playing scared, because Marcus Valdes-Scantling is always a guy who can burn you over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the Bengals corners, who are not particularly strong on the outside. Eli Apple on the outside. Cam Taylor-Britt has played well.
Every single human being wants to see get
Hey, Cam Taylor-Britt.
I mean, he already did in the Super Bowl.
Exactly,
I mean,
but everyone wants to see him get embarrassed.
But Cam Taylor-Britt has played really well. But Eli Apple is Eli Apple. We all know what we're going to see from Eli Apple. We might see some good plays, but they're definitely going to test him. And if they test him over the top, they're going to need help, because even someone who has been as unclutch this season for them as Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he will eventually win.
I think it's important, and I think it's a trend with the Chiefs. Is some random player shows up in an important game.
It's gonna happen.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Charlie, I wouldn't be surprised. This guy
Justin Watson, honestly,
Hey,
I could see it.
It could be like Noah Gray for all we know. He could get 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Like,
Noah Gray,
you never know.
I think, I actually really like that Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think he's going to be really important. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals drop Dax Hill into a slot cornerback role if they play him
Mike
a little bit
Hilton.
more.
That's Mike Hilton.
No, I know Mike Hilton, but I'm saying into more of a coverage,
maybe
role. I think
they're gonna have 2 guys. They're gonna have definitely. I think at all time they're gonna be Bracken and Kelsey because they saw how much they went to him 17 times. Like you said, they targeted him.
Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, Jesse
Logan
Bates,
Wilson, fantastic coverage.
Keem Davis Gaither as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He's played really well.
But I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dax Hill getting dropped more, into the box a little bit more, and covered a little bit more.
Yeah, for me, I'll get into mine. It is DJ Reader. He has been one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the NFL this year. One of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. An absolute absolutely amazing run stuffer, a decent pass rusher as well.
Right.
And he is also going to be huge because, like I said, Isaiah Pacheco, he's one of the guys who I think has to have a really big game for Kansas City. And you've got an elite interior offensive line for Kansas City. And I think him against that offensive line, it's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a huge matchup, him and BJ Hill. And I think
and then they got, guys like Trey Hendrickson.
Exactly.
And Sam Hubbard.
Yeah, but especially on the interior, I think that's going to be a huge matchup, and I think that's going to be one that I'm going to not necessarily have my eyes peeled to, because when you have when you have that offense, Bengals offense, Patrick Mahomes, you're not going to really be peeled to the offensive line, but I think I think whoever wins that matchup, it's going to go a long way to deciding this game. It's an underrated matchup. It's a very important matchup. So I think that is like I said, Pacheco running the ball inside. That's the key part for the Chiefs offense, and DJ Reed stopping that stopping that is a big part for the Bengals defense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really good one. For me, for the Bengals, again, we talked about Jamar Chase. I think Joe Mixon's going to be a huge one.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Mixon, to me, is a very inconsistent player. I think recently he's been more consistent, but someone of that stature, he's not extremely injury-prone, again, recently. And not to compare it to Derrick Henry, but he has that. No one has the size of Derrick Henry, but Mixon's a tall dude. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys have ever seen. Like Derrick Henry, when you see him lining up with Tannehill, like he's big. Like he's generally the running back smaller than the quarterback, generally, unless it's like Kyler Murray or someone shorter. But Mixon is a big dude, so I want to see. And again, the Bengals as well. The offensive line, I think we saw them 3 backups starting against the Bills. The Bills had a very good front 7, and they were able to manhandle them and get their way and impose their will in the trenches. So I think for me, it's going to be Joe Mixon. How are you getting him the ball? How is he playing an impact? Because we talked about Joe Burrow to me is going to have a good game. Joe Burrow is I would argue the most consistent, and again, so is Mahomes. But I think when we're going back to that Josh Allen argument, it's just like Allen is the decision making. Like he has bad games. Joe Burrow to me is a very consistent quarterback. And again,
I think he had that one bad game against Week 1, and then since then he's just been.
So I think they know that Joe Burrow is going to be consistent. Mm-hmm. And again, we're obviously talking about non-quarterback factor, but to me, it's Joe Mixon. I think you talked about Pacheco. I think the running back game. I think it's very not opposite to the Eagles-Niners game, but I think the run game to me is going to be vitally important because I think the Chiefs secondary is arguably the best it's been.
In these matchups.
In these matchups, Trent McDuffie off of the Jarius Sneed and kind of that secondary has been very, very talented. So to me, I think it's Joe Mixon and Pacheco. I think those 2 running backs are going to be vitally important to the success of both of these teams. And I think, like you said, the trenches battle is, I think, the winner that wins this game.
And continuing on to this trenches battle, we talked about the interior, but like you said, Charlie, they've got a good defensive line in general, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. Do you think Cincinnati are going to be able to generate pressure against this Kansas City front, especially considering it's all the more important when Patrick Mahomes is hobbled?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one because Trey Hendrickson does not have a tackle yet in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Trey Hendrickson has been completely silent. Mm-hmm. No stats recorded, which is very rare for a player.
Especially
Trey
Hendrickson was very vital last year, especially
exactly
in that game against the Chiefs.
But I think they're going to struggle to get pressure. They have 3 sacks in 2 games in the playoffs. 2 of them coming from Von Bell and Mike Hilton, which is very weird. It's going to be hard for them to generate pressure if their main pressure is coming from their secondary. And I think the Chiefs' offensive line is going to be able to stunt that, and it's going to be extremely hard for them to get pressure without, that number 1 edge rusher, that number 1 guy who's just been outstanding all year. Trey Hendrickson only has about 8 sacks this year. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, but then also because the Chiefs are going to be focused even more on getting the ball out quick.
Right.
So I think it's going to be tough. I think the Bengals are going to be better off just blitzing, just rushing 4 for most of the game. They've got a great front 4. It's really good. They will get pressure if Mahomes takes too long. The question is whether they'll capitalize on those pressures, whether they'll be able to get to Mahomes. And I think it's going to be a bigger deal for them to make sure that all 6 receivers or all 5 receivers are being guarded at all times.
I think one of the things you're also going to see because of Trey Hendrickson so far is ineffectiveness. I don't think that'll continue. I think he will. He'll get more pressures, maybe even will get a sack in this game. But I think what you saw against Buffalo was Lou under. I don't know, but the Bengals defensive coordinator, who I think should be getting more love for head coaching positions, but you saw him bring a lot of pressures from the slot. You saw Mike Hilton, and like you said, Mike Hilton, I believe, who was the other defensive back that you said got a sack as well? Von Bell. You saw him bringing them from the slot, kind of scaring Josh Allen, that Bills offense with those pressures where he really couldn't see. And especially with Mahomes, I expect they're going to also bring a lot of pressure from his blind side. Obviously, you don't normally blitz a player of Mahomes' caliber, but with him being more injured, you're obviously going to try and get pressure any way you can. And I think you're going to see that a bit more, and I think they're definitely going to get hits on Mahomes. And I think they're going to try and see really how he holds up. I think he'll be okay, but I think obviously it's going to be hard when you're injured dealing with that kind of pressure. And I think that's going to be a huge storyline, how fast really Mahomes and Andy Reid can scheme up him getting the ball out quick, especially against those blitzes that we saw Cincinnati do last week.
Absolutely.
Are we going to get into the picks?
I'm going to I think so.
Who do we have with the last one for a Super Bowl? Last pick we have before picking the champion of the world. We're gonna go to Charlie doesn't look very excited. We go to Charlie first. We'll switch the rotation. Charlie, who do you have winning the AFC Championship?
I don't want to spoil anything for next week. I don't want to spoil anything for Super Bowl predictions. So I'm gonna keep it brief on why I think. I still don't even know. We're just gonna have to make a blind pick. We're gonna go the Chiefs. I think. Mahomes is Mahomes and Burrow is Burrow, but I think both offenses on these teams are high-flying. Both defenses are, startlingly mediocre. And,
I think the Bengals are a bit above. I'd say the Bengals
they're both above average.
It's not like the Eagles are not.
But they're very, these teams are not as well built. They're not as exciting, I think, to talk about as, when you look at the defenses like the Eagles have and the Niners have. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I could easily see this game going 38-35. I could see someone hitting 40.
Yeah.
I could also see it being, 21-17, something along those lines. But we know we're going to see a close game here. The only thing that has me hesitating is Mahomes' injury. If Mahomes wasn't injured, I'd have no trouble picking the Chiefs. I would still think it's a close game. But for this one, for me, I love Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. But I think everyone knows it. Mahomes, even with a high ankle sprain, even with one leg, you could amputate his leg. He's still the best quarterback in the NFL. So I will take Mahomes and the Chiefs. I don't expect me to be confident with this one. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah, see, I'm going to go Bengals. I think the Bengals against Buffalo prove they're the best team in the AFC. This team in the playoffs imposes their will, and this team, I think the Bengals are, in many games we thought they would be chasing behind. They have been the front runner in that game. I think it's going to be very similar to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are a weaker team than they were in the AFC Championship last year, especially now with Mahomes' injury. I think Joe Burrow has been very composed. I think Joe Burrow is on his way to the Hall of Fame, and again, I guess this is the start of that that legacy. But I think he's going to go to back-to-back Super Bowls. I think this team is very, very much on a revenge tour. I think it's a Bengals win, and this one I actually find quite the easiest pick out of the two.
Yeah,
it's a very respectable pick. I think it's a
Yeah.
You know, definitely a real possibility.
I'm gonna go with Keen here. I think the Bengals will win also. But I'm not confident. I think either of these games, and like I said,
I'm not
these are the
confident
these are the four best teams in the league. I think it's hard to be confident
Definitely
picking
not
any team over
confident,
the other. But the reason why I think Cincinnati will win is I think they've got too much firepower for Kansas City. Like Charlie said, I think Kansas City's defense is pretty mediocre. I don't think they're that.
I think Bengals are a little better, but I mean it's not very.
Yeah. But I think.
Not very
But I think that skill positions and the way Joe Burrow is playing right now is now more clearly the second best quarterback in the league. And the way that offensive line really played against Buffalo, even with 3 backs, which I assume they'll probably keep that continuity there given how well they played. I think if they can continue that and Joe Burrow can continue not only airing it out deep, but getting the ball out quick, which we didn't really see last year. He was holding on the ball a lot longer, taking a lot more sacks this year. He's a lot more like he's kind of adopted that Brady Manning style of getting the ball out quick, getting it to his playmakers. And I think he's going to do that a lot more. The offensive line is going to hold up better than they did last year. They're a better team, in my opinion, than Kansas City. They're a better team than they were last year. And they beat Kansas City, who I think were better last year than they were this year. So, but that being said, the Chiefs got Patrick Mahomes. They still got an elite offense.
The thing is Patrick Mahomes
and they got Andy Reid. Exactly. That's the reason why it's so tough to pick against Kansas City.
I think the thing is, when you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, the reason someone picks the Chiefs is because they have Patrick Mahomes. And the reason someone picks the Bengals is because Patrick Mahomes is injured. So,
I don't think.
I think I still would have picked the Bengals regardless.
But it's a very strong reason that.
Obviously it
more heavily
influences.
favored in this one. I think Mahomes is always the guy we look at in a match. Any matchup he's in, Mahomes is the number one person we look at. Mahomes will be the best player in this game. It's just Mahomes is Mahomes. We've seen what he does. This is his 5th straight AFC championship. He'll be looking to make it his 3rd Super Bowl appearance.
I think on his way to his 2nd MVP.
Definitely.
But that all being said, I think Burrow is one of the guys who he's undefeated against Mahomes. He's one of the guys who can dethrone Mahomes, and I think he will. And the Bengals will return to the Super Bowl to play the Philadelphia Eagles.
A repeat.
That would
the Bengals repeat.
No matter what, it's going to be a great Super Bowl. I was thinking about it. Every storyline there's either I'll go through it quickly. Chiefs, Eagles, it'll be the top 2 MVP candidates.
Yeah.
Chiefs, 49ers would be the best quarterback. Yeah, the rematch and the best quarterback in the league versus Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah,
Bengals, Eagles would be 2 quarterbacks from the same draft class.
Exactly.
And then Bengals, Niners, you got the first overall pick versus Mr. Irrelevant. So no matter what,
first overall versus last
that would
be great.
I think all story. No matter what, you're getting a great storyline.
And that's just looking at quarterback.
Yeah. And obviously the rest of the game is going to be insane as well.
Well, there we have it. What a way to end it, sirs. That was great. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Keen McDermott, Charlie Nidell, Suraj Kadali. Make sure you guys comment our picks down below. I hope you like the snow. I hope it calmed you a little bit.
Yeah.
But
nice
as always,
experience.
make sure you guys follow us on social media at TheeSportsScoop. We also have this if you want to follow us. So make sure you guys check us out. Thank you all so much for watching. Man, are we excited. Another year, another AFC NFC Championship prediction. Then we'll have Super Bowl picks. We'll have our other host Dylan Chow.
We'll get into
as well. But
the draft.
We urge you all to comment your thoughts on any matchup down below. We love interacting with you guys, so please do. And without further ado, see you next time.